It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Welcome, everyone, to the Divas That Care Network. My name is Amy McKenzie, and I'm your host today. Our show, The Wow of Women, features the remarkable stories and journeys of women whose lives they've turned around and now impact others. I'm so excited to introduce our guest today. Wow, what a story. Sheena Eastburn is really going to move you. I can tell you that right now. She is remarkable. And let me tell you a little bit about her first before we bring her in. Sheena has had extreme trauma in her life, and she won't be holding back with that story today. I'll let her fill in the details of that. But she took an experience where she was incarcerated for 25 years, never to be released, miraculously got released. But in that time, she turned people's lives around because she knew if I can't get out, I'm going to make sure these people make something of themselves when they do. And that is incredible mindset. And then when she did miraculously get out, she has turned it around and now has created a service to really assist those people, whatever level, whatever point they're at in their journey, come out into the world and have a chance, have a way to begin life again with a positive mindset. You are an inspiration, Sheena. I am so grateful to have you on this show today. Thank you for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. It's exciting.
It's great, and it's an important story. You know, when we look at the things that hold us back in life, most of us aren't dealing with the level of extremes that you have dealt with. But even, you know, each challenge for each person is their challenge, right? We don't want to dismiss that in any way. But whatever that level of challenge is, when it's high for you personally, to be able to make a decision to be positive in the midst of chaos, and the furthest thing from a positive experience externally, but choose to turn around internally is an incredibly powerful choice. So I just first and foremost want to acknowledge you because you chose to be that person. It doesn't happen by itself, and that takes tremendous inner strength. So really, my hat's off to you for what you've done and what you've accomplished already in your life. Really, Sheena.
Thank you. I think that goes for anybody, though. We just have choices, and we have to choose that things can be better even in the worst of circumstances. Sometimes we seem hopeless, but there's always hope if we just dig for it and find it. Sometimes at the depths of your heart, you have to dig for it, but it's there.
Right. Well, and you actually provided it for other people, and that's the biggest part of your story to me. That's the inspiration that you provided. Let's dig in a little bit, if you don't mind. Will you share some of, what got you into this position? What's that background that led up to this? Get us started from the beginning.
Well, I grew up with a terrible childhood. I was sexually abused as a child. As I got older, I decided I was going to get married at 15, thinking I was going to get away from the abuse in my home. Then I married a man that was worse than any of the abuse I'd ever discovered before my young childhood. He was very abusive, mentally, physically, and emotionally, sexually. After about 2 years of that, it came to a point where I either felt like he had to go or he was going to kill me. And at that time, at such a young age, I decided that I chose me. As I went to prison at 17, actually I was sentenced to death by incarceration, which means there's never getting out of prison. You're going to die. I was often told that the only way I'd ever leave was through a pine box. So as I went in there, my first few years, I was a little rocky. I was a teenager. I was angry. I was upset. And then something turned around. I took a class one time, and in that class I learned so much about victims and how our choices impacted other people. That class changed me. After that, I decided that even if I had death by incarceration, I was going to help other women not come back to prison. And I was going to be as successful as I could be, even if I was in the darkest place. So I took every class I could possibly take. I took domestic violence. I turned around and taught it. I took anger management, and I turned around and facilitated it until I just became a teacher of all the classes. And I was doing one-on-one counseling with the ladies and coaching them, and many I still am in contact now. But as time went on, so 25 years later to the day, a miracle happened and some laws changed, and I was released in 2017 in November. And the whole time I was there, though, I always had hope. In the back of my heart, I would just hope that one day I could get out. But even if I was there and I saved one person from coming back in, then I felt I had succeeded.
Wow, that's incredible. That's incredible. So first of all, we're thanking the person who taught you that first class. We're thanking the teachers of the world, reminded of the difference that one person can make in a life that has now had you make the difference in countless lives over 25 years. Well, okay, 23 years when you began that part of the journey. How many people have actually been restored and gotten their hope back and possibly gone out in the world and been able to turn it all around. Because you literally made the ultimate sacrifice. If I can't have it, I'm going to make sure you can. That's incredibly selfless. I am really, really touched by that. So in this process of, becoming that go-to person, you also had tremendous training and development in being a coach under the worst of circumstances, which is remarkable. So let's just talk for a minute about the law that changed, just to help people understand what happened. You were a juvenile when you were arrested.
Yes.
And that's the law that changed. Talk to us about that.
There was a group, they're called the ICANN Network, Incarcerated Children Advocacy Network, and they have been fighting for juveniles. I didn't even realize that there was people out there fighting for me and many juveniles. If you were under the age of 18 years old, you could not be sentenced to life without parole. So that changed my sentence immediately to I could have parole. I, however, had to go back and forth through court, and when I went back and forth through court, I actually got out in a 2-week window. There's a lot of juveniles still incarcerated now under that same law that they have not gotten out. I just happened to get out in this 2-week window. Like, it was truly a miracle that happened. And I have been out since and involved with the ICANN Network as well now, which is helping try to give justice to teenagers, because we believe no child is born bad. Bad things happen to them, but no child born bad.
Very well said. As time you're working with that group now to try and help get some more people released. I mean, it's crazy that hasn't happened. That's insane. If that law has passed, why are there still juveniles that are not being rehabilitated, that obviously are, not all going to have your mindset? And I'm certain that you were kind of a standalone in terms of the norm in your experience, right? If you're coaching everybody else, right? So, that's not an everyday trait, let's put it that way, which is why I'm so moved by it. But so now I love that you've gone back now. You're fighting for these other juveniles who shouldn't still be there. So there's something wrong with that system, obviously, but it's not. The law is passed and it still isn't happening.
Yes, unfortunately, our judicial system is it's a difficult, lot of red tape. But we believe and we hope, and the law has been changed, and eventually those others will get out. It's not been easy. I did have another situation that happened to me that kind of helped. I'll share a little bit about that. Is I was raped in the county jail by a deputy, and they covered that up for 17 years. And when that came out, that did help kind of move mine a little faster because they knew that all that had came out. So that changed some things for me too.
Well, that's a really high price to pay for getting out in 2 weeks. Wow. And my deep condolences for that experience. I mean, there's a justice in it that it served you in the end. And now you're on this side. Yes, ironic, isn't it? And now you're on this side. And I know the ICANN network is something that you promote and work for and help. Not work for because it's a nonprofit, but work to forward into the world and get that into people's consciousness, because that issue is not getting spotlighted, right? And there's so many issues that are just huge, and they're just brushed under the carpet, and we don't hear about it. The media doesn't talk about it. It gets really no airplay. But I also know that you're out there creating for yourself. Now, before we go into what you're doing now, let's just maybe take a minute and talk about to 25 years, and you were young. You hadn't even seen the world yet, and the world that you had seen was not a very happy place, to put it mildly. What the heck could that have been like after 25 years? The world has changed so much in 25 years. What happened when you got out? What was that like for you?
Well, I like to share the story of when I very first got out. My mother stopped at a stoplight, and it was the first time I wasn't shackled or handcuffed in a vehicle for 25 years. So I jumped out and ran around the car, hollering I'm free. And so that was exciting. And my legs, I could jump and I could raise my arms, and I wasn't handcuffed or shackled, and that was amazing. Then we ended up going to Casey's, and just to give you a little kind of what prison's like, you don't have any choices as far as like what you buy or what you drink or eat, but the same ones every day. So they took me into Casey's, and immediately I got a headache because the colors were so bright in the world. So many colors. In prison, it's all drab, white, gray. So
I hadn't even thought of that. That it was actually shocking to see colors.
Yes.
See, that was something I never would have thought of. Wow. Oh, thank you for sharing that. Okay, keep going.
And then as I walked out, I went into Casey's, and, of course, I'm standing there. One, I'm not handcuffed or shackled with an officer next to me. This is strange. Two, they're like, what do you want to drink? And I'm like, I don't know. Just get me a water. And they take me over to the place where the water is, and there's like 20 waters in here. They're like, which one? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. So just grab me one. I didn't know what to choose. And as soon as I get in the car, she hands me a cell phone, which when I got incarcerated, there was no cell phones, no internet. I mean, we had pagers, and you had the cars with the big antennas, and it kept vibrating. I was like, why does this thing keep vibrating? She said, somebody's trying to call you. I'm like, who has my number already? But it was my grandma. They had already gave her number, but they had to answer the phone for me. I didn't know how to work it. That took a lot. And then as I've been out, I will be very honest with you, I went through a deep depression shortly after I got out, because inside I was the person everybody came to. I was the person that everybody needed. And I got out, and all of a sudden I needed people. And it was different. And at one point I had even got kind of suicidal out here and thought prison's easier than the free world. And that was one, it was very hard for me to even swallow that I would think that. And so as times went on, I've made poor choices. I've as far as financial, because they don't teach you about those things. The small things that I enjoy, going outside after dark, opening a refrigerator. We didn't have refrigerators. When I went to cut something with an actual butcher knife, it felt strange and odd because we don't have those. And they had to teach me simple as how to cut a tomato. And so the simple things a lot of people take for granted every day, you get to set your alarm when you wake up. You get to pick when you go to bed, those kind of things. And the other thing was I hadn't been in the dark in 25 years, because in prison it's never completely dark. Or is it silent? So I had to have lights on for a little while because I wasn't used to the dark, and I also had to I would wake up every time it was count time, think I slept through count. It was the small things like that people
a panic attack.
don't think about.
Wow.
Yes, every day. Oh, my gosh, I'm in trouble. I slept through count. But you're not. You can actually sleep in. And I ended up sleeping on the floor the first 2 days because I slept on a metal bunk with a little bitty mattress. So when I came home to the bed, I couldn't sleep. It took me a little while to get used to a bed. So all those things that people take for granted a lot of times are the things that are really, really great when you get out. I love walking barefoot on grass because we weren't allowed to walk on the grass. So I really love walking barefoot on the grass.
Yeah, things that people would never even think about. But it also, let's go back to the depression for a minute. I mean, first of all, I can imagine just the smartphone thing. I mean, I cheated when they first came out. I got a second line so I could keep my old phone, and I only gave that number out with the new smartphone, like to one person at a time until I figured it out. I would have gone out of business, I think. So I can only imagine what it was like for you, right? I mean, all the things that you had to deal with. The water, what a great story, of course. None of that, there was only buying water. I mean, so many changes. But the thing that really stands out here is the idea that, you were the go-to person, and then suddenly that identity was gone. Not only was the whole world entirely different than how you'd left it, and all the things that you just forgot about that you had been used to just over that much time, but you literally didn't have that identity any longer of how you were making a difference for people. I can imagine that must have thrown you into huge depression. And then, of course, how could you not make good choices? I mean, how could you make good choices when you did not have the training, facilitation, how to, manage the basic things in finance and shopping and, God forbid, insurance and taxes and all the rest of it, right? It's a really salient point that none of that's being taught. I mean, I'm glad that they're teaching things about, personal development, but people aren't being taught how to actually live in the world when they get out. Am I hearing you right?
Yes. Yes, you're not really given the tools. I would talk to a lot of people who would just come in, and I'd ask a lot of questions about the outside world. But at the same time, I had to separate myself because when you're in prison, you can't live in there and out here because the depression will start in. And
so it's a survival technique.
I would ask certain questions. Yeah, and I knew there was something called Twitter and something called Facebook, but I was like, I'll never do those things. But yes, the identity, and now I'm all over. But now the identity thing was very difficult because family, I was like Beyonce in prison. Everybody knew who I was. Everybody, and you get out, and all of a sudden you're nobody, and the only thing that you are known for is the choice you made when you were 17 years old. Nobody knows about all these things that you've done to change, or, finding a job was difficult, finding a place to rent. People don't like to rent to felons. All those kind of situations that people are not expecting are difficult. And so that did cause a lot of depression. It caused to make me all of a sudden rebuild myself from this person I knew. I had to start all over and rebuild myself again. But that's the great thing about life. Every morning you wake up, you kind of get to decide who you want to be that day, forever. Right.
Well said. Okay, so now let's move into the present. And thank you so much for sharing all of that. You're now in a position, because you did turn it around. Yep, you got out, you made those mistakes that anyone would make without having any guidance whatsoever, or, real training coming out into this situation, and dealing with the way the world treats people as though there's no one will ever want to, make good of their life. I mean, it's just such a one-sided view of people locking. It's like you're still in prison in terms of people's opinion, from what I can see, and not giving people that chance that they deserve. Somebody wants to do well in their life and they want to turn it around. My God, we should give them every possible chance to do that. And so that didn't happen for you. And yet, here you are turning around and trying to create that individually, you know. I mean, working with ICANN Network, sure, that'll help them get out, but then what? And so I'm really just excited about what you're trying to create here, to literally sort of as a one-man band, a one-woman band, create what's missing for people to be able to reintegrate into the world today. Share with us a little bit about your program and what we can do to support you with that.
Well, right now I've just started my life coaching because I realized I did that in prison. Well, you can have a career out here doing that to help others. I'm concentrating on especially women who've maybe been through trauma, who don't know how to get out of it, or if they get in relationships, and a lot of times people get in relationships and they lose themselves. All of a sudden they forget who they were, who they like. I want women to realize their worth and to trust themselves. And so coaching, that's what I've been doing with women. I've also helped people through addictions, sexual abuse, just any type of kind of trauma, breakup, a bad breakup. It's because what could be trauma to me could not be trauma to somebody else, and vice versa. So it's finding that part. But also in turn of that, I am working diligently trying to get a nonprofit organization eventually to help people coming out of prison, help them find jobs, help places to rent. But not only that, have their family taking classes or meeting with one of us that can kind of tell them trigger points. What do they need to be doing to help their loved one? What can we do to support to make sure that the recidivism rate is going down and not keeps going up? Because so many people come out and they have no clue what to do. And so I want to create an organization eventually that will guide people how to stay out of prison.
Yeah, right. And like you said, I mean, the world is complicated. And especially, I mean, it's hard if you do have training, if you do have experience, and the kind of experience you would have had just growing up as an adult out here. You know, even with the mistakes we make or the things that we maybe don't know, we still have a lot more information. And, you know, there's a lot of, even just being able to watch YouTube, for goodness sake. I mean, you know, that's sort of the go-to now. If you need to fix your fan, you go to YouTube. You'll find the YouTube to help you. You didn't even have that. To be able to provide.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I was going to say I've used YouTube a lot. It has been my friend. It has showed me how to do a lot.
Yeah, I'll bet. You know, we've all come to rely on it. You missed all those years of, you know, the how-to videos. So you're doing some catch-up work. So I can see the huge need, and I can see why people would feel it is easier. Because, you know, I mean, obviously it's not desirable, but if no one's accepting you, you can't get work that's at least, you know, honorable, respectable for you, that honors your soul, your spirit, in what you really want to be doing. And you have to just take whatever, and it looks like that's your life. In some ways you were better off. People told you what to do, when to do it, and you could just, you know, focus on what you wanted, and you didn't have to try and scrimp and save and get by and overcome people's objections and opinions and judgments and all of that. So I can see, you know, people say they don't understand why someone would want to go back. It is easier because we aren't helping. We're not doing enough to make being out here better for the people who it wasn't. The reason they got in there in the first place, in many cases like yours, was because it was so bad out here for them. And of course, that's yet another area, domestic violence, that does not still to this day get enough attention. It started to get a little when COVID first started, but that just sort of petered away like it does. So I think it's going to take a champion like you. And I know there's other organizations out there, you know, but it does seem like there's not been something that really collects them all, partners them up together, so that there's an overlap of energy occurring to be able to bring something through that can really make a dent in this is meaningful. And so, you know, I think what we'll do to support you from our end is, as you move forward and things start to come clear for you, we'll do another show. We'll bring you back on and be able to let people know what you're doing that want to contribute, whatever way that is, whether it's volunteering, whether it's funding, or whether it's just spreading the word through the social media channels that they have, letting the people that they love that may be in trouble or know of someone that is, to be able to access these resources that you're providing. And so in your mind now, just, we're getting close to the end here, but just spend a minute and tell me now, when somebody is coming out, how is it that you are first approaching the subject of how to deal with all of this in transition, in terms of your coaching?
Well, it's what are they going through? I found a lot of it's lack of self-confidence is exactly what I had. I had a lack of self-confidence of who I was, who I am. All of a sudden I felt like I couldn't do anything. And so I find that when people come out and they don't have confidence in that they can do this, they can do this, that I would say is the number one. Lack of confidence and lack of support. If you don't have support in your family, find it. There are places that are supporting, whether it's NA, AA, different things like that. Those are things that can support you if that's what you need, or even a church. But support is the main thing that I find that people need a lot of support. My boyfriend was great for me. He was a veteran, and he kind of knew PTSD. So getting with other people who know how to deal with PTSD, even if you have to go to counseling, it's the best you can do.
Right. Well, I love, too, your focus on not just the person, but their family, because it's not just coming out that requires, some education on how to deal with all this, but certainly no one who's had that experience has any idea that, walking in the grass doesn't occur to them, that colors are too bright, all of these things that are obvious to you are news to someone who hasn't had that experience. And as you say, trigger points. I think it's brilliant focusing an aspect of your nonprofit on training families, if you will, on how to receive gracefully and supportively someone who's literally walking into an alien world. It must have seemed like an alien world to you. And PTSD on top of that. So, oh, God. I can only imagine.
Yes, it is definitely an alien.
Well, it's incredible that you have accomplished what you have and that you are turning it around, have turned it around, and making a difference, using this incredibly challenging experience to be the foundation for making a difference in other people's lives. Do you have any parting thoughts for us? And I know we could talk for ages, but, for this particular segment, any parting thoughts for our listeners out there you'd like to leave them with?
I just want everybody to remember that transformation is possible. No matter where you are in your life, hope is there and transformation is possible, and you get to choose who you want to be. Just never give up. Just never stop fighting for what you believe in.
Sheena, you are a hero. You know that?
Oh, thank you.
You really are. I'm not surprised you're Beyonce in prison, because you are an absolute hero in my eyes. I can't thank you enough for joining us today and sharing such a personal story. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure. I appreciate it.
Well, that's it for today. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us at the Wow of Women. Today's show with Sheena Eastburn was extraordinary. This is all about helping women get to be inspired about what's next in their life. And Sheena, you certainly did that. Thank you so much. We have our listeners, of course, that make this show possible. We thank you. We thank our producer, Candace Gish, the founder of Divas That Care Network. Candace defines the word divas to mean a courageously self-assured woman. And that's exactly what Sheena is bringing people, right? That confidence. And it's something we all need. We join together. Please visit Divas That Care and listen to more stories. Become inspired. This is a platform for all of us. We invite you to join us. And who knows, maybe one of these days you'll add your voice to the conversation. We'd love to have you. That's it for now. Signing off. Thanks so much, everyone. Until next time, have a great evening. Good night.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.